Important update on the current situation. So, endemic virus versus destructive lockdowns. What's the data say? Let's face the facts. So first we look as an example at Ireland and Sweden. Very similar epidemic experience. Epidemic now gone. Lockdowns, we know from many published analyses, have a minimal, if any, real positive effect. So using lockdowns is not going to move the needle much anyway. So we'll keep that in mind. So fact one, published analyses now demonstrate lockdown achieves little impact. Sweden, when accounting for demographic and other factors, performed essentially the same as Ireland with no lockdown. Just illustrates the point. So that's fact one. Let's look at fact two. In Ireland's actual epidemic, you can see the mortality curve here. 95% of the people who passed were too aged or moribund or ill to even be afforded ICU. Ethical decision. Independent of SARS-CoV-2 infection, they were already not in a position really to be afforded ICU. If we look at those people removed, just for perspective, if we limit it to other people, Ireland's actual epidemic involved much lower than 1 death per million people per day at the peak. So fact two, the vast majority of Ireland's deaths were already so aged or ill or other issues that they did not receive ICU in any case, independent of COVID-19. We look at Ireland's actual mortality excess patterns from CSO. There's no lag now because this is from January to May, so the data is all in. We look at fact three. Ireland's actual epidemic left no impact on overall mortality versus prior flu seasons. Europe as a whole is similar, and Sweden certainly demonstrates this. So 2020 followed a soft 19 and should even have been higher than it is, but it wasn't. And you can see that April, the peak month of the COVID epidemic, didn't even beat January in 17 and 18. So that's fact three. We look at Ireland's ICU, and we'll note that it's been flat trajectory for around 11 days. And even if it had doubled, and that would be expected going into the winter season, but even if it had doubled and gone right up, it would still be 12 people per million, right, in ICU with positive PCR, not necessarily driven by COVID-19. So fact four, Ireland's second wave, no evidence of a concerning difference in respiratory ICU or excess mortality. In fact, we're running low for months over prior years. Prior SARS also, and similar, never exhibited a second wave in any case. So there's no reason to expect a second wave after the initial epidemic one, right? So that's fact four. Keep it in mind. One to go. We're going to look at Ireland 2018, and you can see an enormous rise in respiratory virus admittance to hospital, right? From around 8th September up to 8th October, and we're around 20th now. But this 2018, look at that exponential go. So fact five, Ireland's second wave hospitalisation rate, no real evidence of concerning difference over prior years, and it's behaving in a similar trajectory. Currently 315 people in hospital from the database with positive PCR, not necessarily driven by COVID-19. And we have much anecdotal feedback from people connected to the inside that a large number of these do not have the virus as their main reason for being there. They are people in hospital who have a positive PCR in most, or at least many, many cases. So that's fact five. So let's pull them together. Facing the facts. When you put together these five facts, and there are a lot more as well, which strengthen the case, you would say, why are Ireland locking down today and further destroying our economy and population health? It's going to impact cancers, diagnosis, screening, depression, suicidal ideation. Economy is going to be devastated, whole industries made to suffer excruciatingly, undermining society in a terrible, terrible way that could be described as vandalism. This kind of thing should only ever be done during a huge epidemic trajectory. Even in November 2019 for pandemics, the WHO guidelines said no isolation, no lockdowns, right? And then we copied China for some reason. Okay. And we know now that they don't really work. And perhaps not even then, maybe not even in a big epidemic, based on the efficacy analyses now published. We have the data. The modelling was junk. But to do it now, given the facts I've shown you, to decide to right now ruin the economy and society further based on some kind of modelling on the back of an envelope, I'm guessing, right? Why would you do that? And the final slide, spot the difference. Here's a real epidemic, and you've got a near vertical increase in ICU and mortality shown here. That's an actual epidemic. Rises near vertical, comes down the Gompertz curve. But this, what we're seeing, this is dangerous hysteria. It's near horizontal. Can you internalize the difference, the magnitude of the difference between these two scenarios? Back here, we agreed to flatten the curve based on an enormous hump coming and the hospitals being overwhelmed. And after a few weeks, we didn't seem to want to let the lockdown mentality go. And now all the way out here, we want the same kind of lockdowns for this, which is in a different universe. Okay? And I'm stressing here. Think, real epidemics are near vertical trajectory. Hysteria-driven non-epidemics have near horizontal trajectory. It doesn't take an Einstein to work out that we should be thinking hard before we further destroy our economies and our societal health. Think about it. And just a reminder that I do need support to continue putting together all of this content, and at patreon.com/Ivor Cummins, or for PayPal at tinyurl.com/Ivor Cummins, where you can do a one-off or a monthly support. So I'd really appreciate that, guys, and keep me getting the science out there and countering perhaps the more biased corporate type science. Thank you.